Hi, I'm Jim. If you're one of my subscribers, I apologize. I'm not going to have any whiskey content today. That will pick back up on Wednesday, and it'll just be normal from then out. But this is just a video I felt like I needed to get off my chest. And I'm trying to find the words to do it. I've recorded this or started to record this a few times. It's, of course, going to be quite wordy because that's me. For anybody new who's stumbling upon this, this is typically a whiskey channel. I don't talk about politics often or at all. I try not to. But this is a unique situation. I feel like these are unique times, and I felt compelled to make a video about this topic, and that topic is Charlie Kirk. I didn't always care about politics. I guess I'm starting way back. I didn't care about politics until my late 20s. My parents never cared about politics. My dad's politics, my entire life at least, have just been he wants to be left alone. And that was me for the most part. Until politics became something that people my age started talking about. And that probably started in my early 20s to mid 20s. And, most people in that range that I was in the circles with probably didn't know much about politics and just felt like it was the time to start talking about it because we're adults now. But I never really cared. And I never really cared until I said something stupid and somebody corrected me. You see, I was one of those guys that was a never Trumper. That was during his first run as president. I couldn't stand him. I thought he was all those nasty things that you heard the news say about him. I voted for Gary Johnson, if anybody was wondering, during that election. And I said one of those stupid things, repeating it like a parrot, to somebody I knew. And he corrected me. He asked me why I believed that. And I couldn't come up with a good enough answer to suffice myself. And his response to me was kind of, well, why am I saying that if I don't have an answer for it? Why am I repeating these things without a reason to repeat them? And so I sat back and I said, that's a good point. Just to prove that I'm right, I'm going to look these things up and I'm going to come back and I'm going to have another conversation with this guy. I'm going to let him know exactly what I meant, what I was referring to. The stories I had repeated, I needed to look those up. And when I did, I found out that I was wrong and that I was repeating nonsense. And that led me down a path of hyperfixation on politics and on our world today and the way people go about getting information. And I'm not suggesting anybody else does that. And I'm sure a lot of people were interested in politics their entire lives or since they were a teenager or whatever it may be. This is just me and my experience. So once I found out that I was wrong, and I started down my path of hyperfixation on politics and the world today and news stories that seemingly aren't real. There were a few figures that popped up that were doing something very interesting, and that was having open conversations about things that you weren't supposed to talk about. Not that you weren't supposed to talk about, but you felt like you weren't supposed to talk about. And those people were all being labeled as racists, misogynists, everything that Donald Trump was being labeled. And one of those people is Charlie Kirk. Another one is Jordan Peterson. And you can go down the line of Joe Rogan and all these people who seemingly were just having open conversations and being labeled fascists and Nazis and racists and sexists and whatever you want to say. And that hit home to me because my entire life, even though I didn't care about politics, the one thing that I did care about, one thing that I knew, was that our country, the United States of America, was special specifically because of the First Amendment, because of the freedom of speech. We are the only country that has the freedom of speech. We could say whatever we want and not fear from our government. And that is unique to the United States of America. And so seeing all these people who were being lambasted as racist, sexist, homophobic, Nazi, fascist, whatever it may be. And the one thing they all had in common was they were willing to have open conversations about topics that were too taboo for many of the people that seemed to be shouting at them that they were these things. And that really kind of changed my political compass a little bit. That made me kind of delve into politics more and become even more hyper-focused and start studying things I never would have thought of, and brought me down paths that I probably wouldn't have gone down before. But it was crazy to me that these people were being labeled these things. And then when you can go watch their videos, you can see that they're not. And then it makes you think of, how many other things you've been wrong about. And here we are today, and 4 days ago, Charlie Kirk was shot, seemingly for having those open conversations. And you can go online today and people are celebrating it. And people are also still calling him these names when you can watch any of his videos and see that he's not that. He's never made racist points or sexist points or homophobic points. It just hasn't happened. And it's super sad to me. Super sad that he's gone. Super sad that there are these many people that believe these lies. And super sad that our country is so much different now than what it was 20 years ago. And I guess the reason why I wanted to make this video is because in the moment when I found out that Charlie Kirk was gone, the first thing that I was thinking about in that moment was his wife and his children, and how they don't have a husband and a father anymore because he believed in the freedom of speech and God and having conversations with people who disagreed with him. Because that's the reason why he's gone. He's gone because he had conversations that people didn't want him to have. And that's scary, that's sad, that's terrifying. That's a lot of things. Because we live in a country, the only country with the freedom of speech. Among everything else, of the reasons why it's terrifying and sad. But we are the country that's supposed to value that the most. And that's the reason why he's gone. And, there's, trying not to get into it, there's so many people to blame. So many institutions to blame. It's not just the guy that pulled the trigger. If you think it's just the guy that pulled the trigger, look a little bit deeper than that. It's just sad. And so the next thing I wanted to say was, in that moment, I was so glad to be on my couch next to my wife. Because the person that I, care about the most is sitting right there. It's one of those moments that makes you very aware that you could lose anybody at any time. If, somebody's going to pull the trigger on him for having conversations with people. You can lose your life for anything. It's so simple, so dumb. Tell the people in your life that you love them. Cherish them. Have conversations with them. Not trying to make this a religious video either, but I don't know. Just wanted to get that off my chest. Again, I'll be back to whiskey videos on Wednesday. Apologize for not bringing my normal videos on a Monday, but just needed to get this off my chest. Thanks for watching.